Hello, welcome to this interview. And in this interview, I have a special guest who I've known virtually. I haven't met her in person, but she is an amazing person who wrote this book, which is called Winning the Money Game. And that's none other than Salome Rumbi Chamboko. And welcome to the call, Salome.
Thank you so much, Kuda. And yes, I know we've not met in person, but the impact online has been incredible. So I'm really grateful for this opportunity.
Absolutely. So, I'll tell you a little bit of a story about Salome. I recently relocated to the United Kingdom and I read her book, actually a couple of many times reading this book. And this book helped me establish or, speed up the process of me establishing a community, which is called Kuriseyi.com. And this is a community of entrepreneurs, of people who are in the diaspora and that wants to build businesses back at home or in the respective countries that they live in. So we discuss about different ideas, especially to do with partnering with suppliers and manufacturers in China. So one of the striking moments that I heard from the book, I'm going to be talking about it as we go. So to start off our interview, Rumbi, could you please introduce yourself so that our audience can get to know who you are and who is Rumbi?
Okay, so where do I start? So I'll start from a personal and then maybe a bit more professional, just so it makes some good context. So, as you know, my name is Rumbi or Salome, whichever one people prefer, I always say. Chamboko is the surname, and I have been living in the UK since about 2002. If you want to do the maths, I will let people do that. I was actually still 17 years old when I moved. So I finished my education, formal education here, and then started my accounting profession, which was something I always wanted to do. And so I have been a tax consultant for a few years, and at some point, I then started coaching, financial coaching, because I realized I started having a passion for personal development, which then focused more into the money side of things. And that was purely because of my own personal journeys, which I think we'll get into hopefully when we discuss the book in more context. So in a nutshell, I'm also a woman of faith, so I'm a mother as well. So I think that gives a good representation of who I am, both personally and professionally, to some extent.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that story. That reminded me of a chapter that I was reading in the book where you became an accountant and your accounting probably came from your early childhood when you spoke about you learning in a boarding school in Zimbabwe and where you had to learn how to budget your money for the whole term. But anyway, we'll talk about it. So now let us talk of moments of your inspiration. What specific moments or personal observation that inspired you to write the book Winning the Money Game, particularly knowing that there are lessons that would resonate strongly with people who have got a Zimbabwean or rather an African background?
All right, so I think I wrote the book, Winning the Money Game, because I saw too many educated people, myself included, working very
Mhm.
hard, but still feeling financially stuck, right? And the idea came from my own journey where I said to myself, okay, I've gone to school, I've done the right things, I have done the courses, I have, gone into this financial world, which has always been my dream. But somehow I'm still living paycheck to paycheck, and I seem to be on this constant cycle where the month gets to partway through and I've got no money left, and I had to start searching for that. But being a child, looking back at my childhood and things like that, those are not things I had expected. I just thought, once you grow up, you get a job, you could get a good career, you're financially set and you're successful. So the inspiration was coming from a place of finding a solution as to why I am finding myself stuck. And then I began to see certain cycles around debt, certain cycles around the money system in the UK, etc., that I had to learn about better and improve on. And so the inspiration was really personal experience, knowing that being book smart or being educated alone is not going to cut it in order to actually win financially and be successful.
Absolutely. That makes so much sense. So now let's talk about the book title. You said winning the money game. Could you please define to the audience what that money game, that game means and what ultimate like winning looks like from your perspective?
Okay, so the reason why I called it a money game is because, when you play a game or when you're a
Yeah.
part of I've also got a bit of a sporting background in my in my
Yeah.
growth and things like that. So I realized that we are in essentially the life we're living is a product of taking scores and making scores. You win, you lose, you make decisions, you find ways of bringing joy, you learn rules, right? And you make choices and you play it with a purpose. So for me, the money game isn't about earning the most amount of money. It's about
Mhm.
learning the rules of money, making the right choices, playing the game with purpose so that you then win what is meaningful to you in terms of having peace of mind, building confidence, and having that freedom that you need in your own terms when it comes to what success means. So that's why I called it the money game.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Now, let's talk about one of the things that you discuss in your book is the meaning, the missing part in terms of the financial education, and especially for those people who grew up in Zimbabwe. You spoke about in your book, I quote actually, you were talking about, growing up in schools and not learning about finances, how to budget, how to make use the best of money, how to do debts and all these other things. And how does your book then fill that gap, especially then when you spoke in your book where you had to transition from being a single person to getting married and juggling all those things? For someone who hasn't gotten hands on your group, on your book, what is the missing gap there?
Okay, so education is important fundamentally in all aspects and spheres of life. Whether you are doing it in Zimbabwe or you're doing it in England. But we were very good at, in Zimbabwe where we grew up, we're very good at the academic focus in school. Because I then had the privilege of having school here as well, I did see some slight differences. But
Mhm.
for me, the missing bit was we were very equipped for cramming and passing the exams, and then we would produce a very educated people. But then I feel like there was a lack of some skill sets in certain areas when it came to life skills, right? And that might still be the case in some areas. Interestingly, in the UK, just this week, they've actually passed on a rule of changing the curriculum from primary school level, where financial education is now going to be incorporated, or financial literacy is going to be incorporated in the school curriculum, amongst other life skills. So I then realized very quickly that in as much as we had a lot of focus on the academic excellence, your reading, your writing, your reasoning, your arithmetic, your Pythagoras theorem, all these kind of things. Yes, if you're going into specific careers, some of that stuff will help and to
Yeah.
also put the education foundation. But what about the relevance? The relevance to be able to live life in a way that you can actually manage money, understand what debt is, understand what an interest rate is, understand what a mortgage is, or understand a credit system. So I also have to be forgiving because we grew up in a different monetary system in Zimbabwe, which may not have automatically encompassed these things that are available in other parts of the world. So perhaps there could have been an equivalent way of being prepared for what was our own environment economically. But I think the missing piece was that bit about the relevance and preparation to real life. So my book then brings to life this relevance part of the financial journey to actually walk you through, what are the practical things you actually need to learn around managing money, even from a young age, up to adulthood.
Absolutely. That's amazing. There's a statement that says to teach is to learn twice. Okay.
Mm,
So what it simply means is that you have written a book And I know that your goal was to educate and teach and raise awareness, which you have done for me and quite a number of people that have been giving reviews about your book. You know, like I said, to teach is to learn twice.
Hmm.
Do you have any particular chapter in the book where you read through and as you write it, it was even transformative for you? Which chapter would that be?
Okay, I've got two answers to that because there's a chapter that was hard to write, and then
Okay.
there was a chapter that I also received so much enlightenment in writing and encouragement. So I think I can use those two if you allow me.
Yeah.
The chapter that was hard to write was the debt one, right? I'll just quote what the actual chapter is. I call it Debt, the Double-Edged Sword. It's chapter 2. And when I
Yeah.
wrote about debt, the double-edged sword, it's kind of brought back I had to face my own past habits around debt because I had to decide how vulnerable I'm going to become when I'm talking about debt. Because, there is the theory that there is good debt and there is bad debt. What is good
Hmm.
debt? It's the debt that you probably get into because you are making calculated investments or taking good risk that is going to earn you more, or you're getting an education, perhaps a student loan, it's debt maybe to get a property, getting debt into debt for something that's going to be tangible or to grow a business, right? That is the good debt side. So I was okay with talking about that. But when it then came to the bad debt side, which is the debt that can leave strain on you because you are taking out these debts, but it's not really for something that's actually going to build you up. It's becoming more of just a cycle for you to get extra money, right? Maybe it's a debt
Yeah.
for a car, right? We all, I used an example of the debt of a car that I got into when I was very young, for example, when I started working. But at the time I got into that debt, it was just me looking at saying I can afford to get this car and I can afford to repay. I had not even considered the interest rate and how much it was costing me to pay that back and how much I then paid later for a depreciating asset. So it's things like the debt with credit cards where, okay, it's fine if I need to, you know, purchase a flight emergency to go to Zimbabwe because, I need to deal with the situation. Yes, I can explain that debt. But sometimes I got into debt for reasons I couldn't then explain later. It was just to support a lifestyle I started to build. So
Yeah.
debt also then created a situation where I personally then, even after I got married, we couldn't get a house because my debt story and my debt situation was so bad and I couldn't explain it. So writing that chapter for me was very personal and also very
Hmm.
hard because I had to open up wounds. But fortunately, it's something I've gotten over, if that makes sense. And I was writing that
Yeah.
chapter to really bring people to light so that they don't fall into the same traps that I fell into at some point where you apply for credit cards and you just get more credit, or you apply for loans and you get more loans, but it's not really feeding into something that's actually going to bring you a better wealth or a better net worth. Okay, so that's the
Absolutely.
debt chapter. And
Okay.
then the other
So,
chapter that I found very, very liberating for myself was
mhm,
the bonus chapter, which is to do with, managing personal finances while building a thriving business. I guess, that for me was very, very, very good because I'm an accountant and I deal with helping people with their taxes and their accounts and things like that when they have businesses. But I realized that personal finance links very strongly to how people manage their business finances. And it's really something that I've begun to do more to say when I've got my clients and I'm helping them with their tax matters. We're also then having to manage personal finances because we're realizing that there are a lot of gaps that are then feeding into the business aspect. So that started to become
absolutely.
very personal, as well as chapter 6, which is to do with thinking beyond the 9 to 5. So you've got me going now, Kuda. I'm sorry, I've now
Yeah,
talking about all my different
absolutely.
chapters. But I think in a nutshell, it's definitely to do with the debt and the personal finance feeding into business, and then ultimately thinking beyond the 9 to 5, which is chapter 6.
Yeah, absolutely. The way you wrote the book, I mean, it kind of it's kind of a wake-up call for people. We have the dream to become entrepreneurs, 9 to 5, like you've explained.
Mm-hmm.
So as I also read the book, I read it a couple of times actually. So I then realized to myself I needed to push more than I am. So still on that, you spoke about the chapter when you spoke about the debts, the good debt, and things like that. You touched base on remittances, the black taxi within that chapter specifically. I kind of remember, I've been reading the book a couple of times. So navigating remittances, as people move to the diaspora, it's a huge part of their experiences in terms of sending money back at home.
Mm.
And how can the principles in your book help someone manage dual demands of financing family at home whilst building their own financial stability in a new country? A very good example is that when people relocate to the United Kingdom, there's families that they have left home, and when the families look abroad, they look with saying that this person in the diaspora can actually help us. But looking at the person who's in the diaspora, probably they need to balance between that, sending money back at home and also building their structures here.
Yes, it's a very big issue. It's a very big discussion in our community. And it's always sort of how far do you go? Because there's an element of the responsibility to say, if you've got loved ones that you've left at home, which is, like you've rightly said, it's important for us to then financially support and know where we have responsibility and know the extent of it. I always say it's good to help because we've also been helped in life to get to where we are, right? Everybody's got a story to tell. And if it is in your power to do so and you are able to help, then that is the right thing to do. However, so while supporting family is important and it's good, I think there's an aspect of creating the right boundaries around how you do that and actually having a budget around it so that these remittances, based on their importance and their relevance to everyone's personal situation, it's fragmented in part of the budget in a reasonable manner, but you're also focusing on building something sustainable for yourself at the same time. Because there's a saying that goes, you can't pour out of an empty cup, right? If you are doing remittances to the point that your livelihood is impacted where you are in the diaspora, the livelihood of your children in the diaspora is being impacted because you're having to concentrate on these remittances. We need to strike a balance of creating the right boundaries. And it's very difficult for me to give one answer, but I think the principle I'll give is it's down to the budgeting and it's making sure that you yourself first are looked after, because at the end of the day you are the body that's going to work, and
Absolutely.
where you live and where you are based, you need to have your basic structure in place. And then with that, you can then make the sacrifices or make the adjustments, but you're budgeting for it as well. Does that make sense? Because sometimes people
Yeah.
will ask and people will not stop asking. You need to know when to say no, and you need to
Hmm.
know where this is within my budget. I'm looking after if it's a parent, if it's and it's having the boundaries of knowing how far these remittances are going, right? If it's your own
Yeah,
children, then
absolutely.
obviously that's a different situation. So I think everybody's position is going to differ, but the key principle is yes, it's great to help, but you need to create the healthy boundaries and have it incorporated in the budget so that you're then not taking from debt, right, in order to feed into the remittances. Otherwise, you then lose your own sustainability in the process.
Absolutely. So, still with that, when people land in the diaspora, there is those that have a mindset of scarcity, and there's those that
Mm.
have a mindset of abundance. I've been having a conversation with a lot of people, and you find that when you speak to some people or Zimbabweans who have moved in the diaspora, they speak from a mindset of scarcity, where they say, um, UK diaspora has limited opportunities. The only thing that you have to do is to do shifts and anything in between. And at the same time, when you speak to other people as well, you realize that they speak out of abundance. They speak that opportunities are there in the diaspora. And how does your book, you know, transform readers from a mindset of scarcity to financial abundance and
Mhm.
growth while living in the diaspora?
Okay, I think the concept of scarcity and abundance is
Mm-hmm,
very universal and it can happen in any environment. There are some people that were born and bred in the UK and they still can have a scarcity mindset, right?
mm-hmm,
That's one layer. And then we've got that scarcity mindset, which is then impacting those that have got the cross-border aspect, which is our
mm-hmm,
community. So I want to make sure that I touch both. The reason I say that is because even if you've come from the diaspora, you might be raising children here who can end up with a scarcity mindset in as much as they also never lived in Zimbabwe. I don't know if that makes sense or lived elsewhere. So I just want to make sure it's all comprehensive. And I'll start with the definition, what having that scarcity mindset is, so that it also goes beyond, what someone else could be thinking. When someone has a scarcity mindset, they feel like they have to hoard or hold everything they have because they're thinking that's all they can acquire. And there's no thinking beyond what they can see or
mm-hmm.
thinking beyond what they think is possible. So, like you've rightly said, someone will just limit themselves to earning income in a certain way and not seeing beyond that. On the other hand, having the abundance mindset is saying, let me grow. Yes, I've acquired this, but how can I actually grow this? How can I make it multiply? How can I have other streams of income, or how can I bring more joy to my financial
Yeah.
world beyond what is the limiting thing that everybody is used to and everybody's seen? Now, having laid that foundation, it starts with the mindset. I think that's just a key thing because when you move into a new place and a new territory, the people you hang around with matter a lot, right?
Mm-hmm,
You'll find that you become a product of the five closest people that are around you. So I don't touch this in the book, but I'm gonna link back to the book in a moment. So your mindset and the decisions that you make and
mm-hmm,
your mentality of scarcity and abundance is going to be very much linked to your surroundings and the people that you see. The five people you surround with yourself with the most will determine also your mindset a lot. So when it then comes to money, what I did with the book was I said, okay, I was talking to the person as an individual, right?
mm-hmm,
And I looked at the saving and investment aspect, and I spent a lot of time on that because a lot
mm-hmm,
of people don't even think about investing, or they hear about investing and they think it's only for other people. I don't have enough. I only have enough to pay my bills, or I only have enough to look after myself. I can't think beyond that. I don't have enough. I should stop paying into a pension because it's going to be pointless, or because I don't have the money. It's taking away
mm-hmm,
some of the money that I need right now. Or I don't have the money to think beyond my job or to think into business. So I touch on the scarcity and the abundance mindset from the areas of opening the reader's mind to think of the possibility of how they can get into investing from a very, very small level. And obviously, how they can also think about getting into business so that they open their mind to have a bit more abundance. So, those are the angles that I just used to try and subtly deal with that scarcity and say, don't limit yourself to the shift work only, or don't limit yourself to the 9 to 5 only. Of course, there are certain people that could be in certain situations that restrict them in terms of what they can do. That's beyond that. But it's thinking differently to say, I won't say I don't have enough. That little that I have, I will start investing, or I will start paying into my pension, or I'll start learning about the stock market. I will start putting in, even if it's £50 a month. I use that
mm-hmm.
in the book as an example.
Absolutely. So now let's talk about if someone purchases your book,
Hmm.
right? And this person is in the diaspora and he has to only implement one advice from winning the money game book this year. What would that be?
Well, We call it a game. We call it a game, a money game. I call it a money game, right?
Yeah.
And there's a saying that goes, you can only change or you can only improve what can be measured, right? As a game, you can only improve on a game if you know the score, if you know how you are doing and how you're performing. As a
Hmm.
starting point, before someone even thinks about how much am I going to invest, how much am I going to do this, how am I going to do that, the question is, do you know where you are right now? So you may know what your salary is, but do you
Hmm.
know your numbers enough to have a snapshot to know how much your lifestyle actually costs you? I think for
Yeah.
me, that's a starting point. A starting point of knowing where you are right now, what your budget is. Do you even have a budget? And we've made the mistake of thinking that a budget is done when there's a restriction of funds. No, even really wealthy people, even companies, everybody needs to do a budget so that they know where their resource is going to be allocated. So as a first level, as a first point, I've even done that's a separate thing that's going to be sent to people who request for like a budget template where you look at what is my actual incoming and what are my outgoings? Where exactly is my money actually going? If we
Hmm.
can start from there, then we know where the gaps are, we know where the leaks are, we know where the adjustments can be made, and we know where the improvements can be made. I think that's where the winning actually starts from.
Absolutely. Where is your money going? I think from this interview, someone just channel your money towards this book. I mean, it's an amazing book, I tell you. So, talking of families, a lot of people came to the UK as family members,
Mhm.
right? And they've got kids. How can parents in the diaspora use the book principles to teach their children financial literacy, ensuring them they are well equipped to win the money game?
Okay, so like I said before, maybe you said it, that there's actually a chapter in the book
Yeah.
that's specific. It's chapter 8, which is raising financially intelligent children and breaking generational cycles.
Yeah.
The reason I added the generational cycle bit is if there's been struggle of money that has been happening consecutively with our grandfathers, with our fathers, with us, do we really want to pass that on to our children? Where is that cycle going to break? And that cycle can only break, yes, based on the opportunities we present to our children, yes, based on the education that they receive. But when it comes to the money aspect, the financial intelligence that we're going to intentionally pass on to our children has to be done in a way that it starts from home. And what do I mean?
Hmm.
Gone are the days where we won't talk about money in general and wait for our children to start learning about money later. Of course, yes, they're going to need pocket money. They're going to need to be buying school dinners, all those little things that they're doing on a weekly basis. We start using them to start talking the language of, oh, what's your budget going to be? Or how much do you think you're going to need to spend? Or how much have you actually spent? We start making them accountable, not in a way that creates fear or that's creating control, but in a way that teaches them power so that they
Hmm.
start to know that money is not a taboo topic. They start to know that, effort that they make, they get rewarded for it, right? So in the book, what I've done is I've actually given suggestions of what parents can do for children at different ages. So I've categorized it from the age of 3 to 7, what parents can do. You start introducing the concept of money, start teaching them the coins. Like these days, we don't even use cash that much. It's a cashless
Hmm.
society. Let's go
Yeah,
back
of
to
course.
those basics, right? And get our children to start to see a jar of coins, let them feel the joy in accumulating those coins and seeing the power of what that money can do. Do I save it? Do I spend it? Do I share it? Right? So it's those little simple formats. And I also talk about the growth stage when children get to the age of 8 to 12, right? You start opening a bank account for them. You start talking to them about budgeting their pocket money. You start talking to them about needs and wants. So there's a certain way that we can do it, even if we're not financial experts. But because we are parents that are using money every day, we then create an environment where we create a lifestyle where talking about money freely is done in a positive way. And sometimes, I remember a lot of people would tell me when they were growing up, they would want certain things and the parents can't afford it. Yes, there could be certain situations where we can't afford certain things, but how are we conveying that message to our children in such a way that we're not creating a scarcity mindset for them? So I then go on to explain in the book how you then do it when they're now teenagers and even as young adults, because a lot of people then have young adults who are now starting out maybe in the place of work or in university, etc. Again, in the book I sort of expand on how you can teach your children to make financial and informed decisions yourself.
Absolutely. So, you have spent a lot of time writing this book. Um, I'm sure you had a vision, okay? And especially, I would say for everyone who reads the book, of course, but especially for Zimbabweans in the diaspora,
Mhm.
what is the ultimate lesson or the realization you hope every Zimbabwean in the diaspora walk away with from reading your book?
First of all, from reading the book, I think I need to demystify something.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of people don't like to read, for starters. So
Yeah,
let's
that's
get
true.
over that hurdle. Let's get
Yeah.
over the hurdle of reading is a thing of the past. I made the book quite small. It's big in terms of the size outwardly, but it's quite thin. It's less than
Yes.
70 pages. It's a very small book with very sharp chapters, and that was deliberate. That was deliberate because I wanted to make it easy. Make it easy
Okay.
for someone to get started with challenging themselves on that journey of actually doing the reading, whether they're an adult or not. So, in terms of what I would love them to achieve, or what I really also wanted to see as a breakthrough, for me, it's shifting of mindset.
Hmm.
It is education around the very, very little things that we stumble on. When I use my own personal examples in the book from, various ages and stages of my life, it's to just say, don't repeat the same mistakes others have made. You
Absolutely.
can do it, you can make it, but just believe in yourself in a way that you equip yourself with the right knowledge. So I think all I wanted to do was to equip people with just not theoretical knowledge, but practical
Hmm.
knowledge of managing money in basic manners. There are bigger books to read, there are more detailed books to read and things to expand on the bits that I
Hmm.
dropped. But my goal was to empower and build the confidence to say you can win in this game as long as you understand the habits you need to incorporate and you understand the adjustments you need to make and do that from a place of positivity.
Absolutely. So we are almost coming to the end of our interview. Is there any question that you feel that, oh, Kuda, you should have asked me this question, that you want to share with the audience?
I think you've already asked it, but I think it's around the vision again. If I can just go back to that.
Oh yeah.
There is that aspect of, you know, people work very hard. Um, and the vision again was around as Zimbabweans who are abroad, we stop just surviving. There's this mantra of we just need to survive, we just need to survive. And sometimes it's the way the system is. And I think it's the real vision. The question I would have loved was the vision for the diaspora, which I think you've asked, but in a different way, is for
Hmm.
us to break out of the survival mode
Yeah, of
and
course.
get into a place where we're really starting to thrive, we're really starting to build legacies, and we're not just doing the remittances. Okay, because there's an aspect of getting stuck in the loop of only doing the remittances, and sometimes we're building things abroad that we may not ever enjoy ourselves, and sometimes we may enjoy ourselves, right? Because everybody's got a different financial plan and things like that. But I think it's making sure that the financial literacy that comes out within our generation is to bridge, the freedom that's needed, in how we see money and how we see legacy and how we see, earning power. It's not just about how much you have or how much you're
Hmm.
making, it's how much you've got left and what's being left for tomorrow. So that
Hmm.
whole aspect.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you spending time with us and sharing about your journey. So for our audience, for those who wants to begin their financial well-being, where's the best place to buy the book? And then some of the online resources so that you can they can communicate with you. But yeah, where's the best place to buy?
Okay, so I've got a website, www.salomeru.com, which is which has got a resources section within that.
Okay.
So people can go to the resources section and they can select the ebook and they can download the PDF of the book instantly. That's available there. They can also get a signed copy if they wish, which is a hard copy that can be sent to them. But Amazon is also an easy spot. The book is available on Amazon. Just type Winning the Money Game.
Yeah.
You make sure it's the one
Winning the
from
money game.
Salome, because I think there's another book called that, which has got a slightly different, look. But yeah, just make sure it's the right one. It's available on Amazon and you can get that shipped to you. But I think obviously if you want an e-version, you can get the PDF and that's dropped on through the website.
Okay. So I'd like to thank you so much, Salome, for being part of this conversation. And I want to thank you so much for inspiring our journey for our community, which is called Kuriseyi.com, which is a community of entrepreneurs that are looking to get into business through China manufacturers and China suppliers. And thank you so much for graciously agreeing to be part of this conversation.
Oh no, thank you so much, Kuda. And I'm really inspired by what you're doing to also encourage other people to get into business and think beyond just the shift and think beyond, just the 9 to 5. It's excellent. And I think that's part of the journey that brings the breakthrough that we're looking for to go beyond survival to thriving.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and bye for now.
Thank you.